this world, there are people who have witnessed extraordinary events. Ghosts, cryptids, possessions, close encounters, otherworldly entities, and mysterious disappearances. Dim the lights, open your mind, and prepare to step through the dark doorway.
Today is September 14th, 2025. Well, by the time this airs, it's probably going to be more like September 16th, 2025. Coming at you from a place where the truth is stranger than fiction and where the watchers are always watching. You're listening to Watching the Dark Away. I'm your host, Mark Bolden, and we've got the one and only Monica, the Spirit Queen, with us. And when I say one and only, accept no substitutions, don't roll with the fraudsters, report them, block them, whatever makes your day, but they are not her. So we got a really interesting show today. I like having Monica on because she's always got really interesting topics for us. But yeah, this one's a little different because one of the things that intrigued me that we didn't really pursue too deeply in the last on our last discussion, Monica, was I've worked with people in the past, and I know someone specifically who's helped out with police investigations from the as being a psychic medium, and I always found those topics interesting, and I kind of wanted to get into some of the ins and outs of that type of interaction with law enforcement, and obviously, there are other factors, not just law enforcement, that we're going to get into because, when you're dealing with any type of investigation, it's not just law enforcement, but you also have to be sensitive to families. There's family members involved. There could be, the people that are under investigation that are involved. And obviously, you don't want to create any false leads, false hope, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of want to get into that. So we're going to dive right in on this conversation, Monica. And I'd like to start out with just talking about law enforcement. How do you, from your opinion, how do you feel psychic mediums should be interacting, or even let's not restrict it there. You even have people who are channelers, and you even have remote viewers, right? Would you agree? So, how would you say that they can benefit law enforcement?
Well, psychic mediums can benefit law enforcement in many different ways. First and foremost, when you are approaching law enforcement, investigators, detectives, you kind of have to, you can't just jump in head first and say, hey, I'm a psychic medium. I'm here to help out with your investigation. This is what I'm seeing. Because a lot of times, I mean, especially most of them could be skeptics. And I have worked with those skeptics before. And you kind of have to do it gently, a little bit more lightly with them, kind of introduce yourself and kind of like break the ice between you two, like try to get them to trust you a little bit. One of the cases, the last case that I was recently working on, for example, when the detective contacted me after I had presented all the evidence and everything that I found in this case. Um, and the crazy part is, I'm in a whole different state from the case that I was working on. And so he did kind of question me, and he was like, so how are you involved with this? How do you know about this? Being in a different state, I've never been into that city before. So you kind of have to like gently explain to them. And I told him, I said, listen, I know this kind of sounds weird. I know it sounds crazy. I said, but I do have these abilities that I can't explain sometimes. Things just come to me. And when this case first started, day two, when I was hearing about it, all these images and visions and predictions, like everything just started coming to me. Sometimes I can help it, sometimes I can't. In this case, I really couldn't, especially when it has to do with a missing persons case. And so I was, when I talked to the detective, I gently put it down and I said, listen, this is what it is. I broke it down with him, and he said, he's like, I get it. I understand. I mean, I got lucky. There are times when they'll just look at you like, okay, let's dismiss it. But the funny thing is, once they put all the puzzle pieces together in the case, including what you have told them or what evidence you have provided, then there's a really good chance when they will start taking you serious and start looking into like maybe she does have the abilities, maybe she knows what she's talking about, maybe we should listen to her a little bit better. You know what I mean? So this case, like I said, I had traveled from Las Vegas, Nevada, where I'm at, all the way down to the other state, um, and did my own investigation, found what I found, and turned all the evidence in. And when the detective contacted me, he was actually very, very respectful about it. And he said they're definitely going to go to that particular location where we found the stuff. And they're actually, it's still an ongoing investigation at the moment. But I mean, sometimes you can get somebody that's a skeptic. Sometimes you can turn skeptics into believers. But if you know what you're doing, if your job is 100% accurate, it can't be 99.9%. It has to be 100%. And who's to say, you know, you might stumble upon a crime scene where investigators have missed, but it might not be the crime scene for that particular investigation. It could also be a crime scene for something else, and you just open that door in helping them with a different case as well.
So
So it's
that
really
actually,
interesting.
you know, I don't mean to cut you off here, but that actually brings up an interesting point that you could be looking into an ongoing investigation and potentially pick up something from a totally different crime. And that was
And
something
I have done that.
and you have, I never thought about that aspect because in my mind, you know, you're focused, you know, sharp as a tack, you're trained on the rails and you're looking only into this one thing. But there's a possibility that you could be picking up psychic impressions from something totally different that maybe occurred in the same vicinity or maybe occurred with the same investigator,
Right,
and you might be picking up impressions on that. That's really amazing. I never even thought about that aspect of it. When
right.
so you know, and it brings up another touchy subject, which is, have you ever run into any pushback from, let's say, anyone that's on the periphery of the investigation, whether it be a family member or maybe a relative of a suspect, or do you just make it a point just to stay away from that side of the fence altogether?
Oh no, I'm like a shark when it comes to investigations. I would look into everything that or everyone that could possibly be involved in the case, especially when they release news videos of family and loved ones of a particular individual, for example, that went missing. And I analyze everything. I analyze people, their facial expressions, what they say, how they talk. For example, this particular case that we're talking about, I've seen a couple of videos on the news where certain individuals, family members, um, where I am very certain that either were involved in the crime or they have knowledge, they know information that they're not releasing due to their own personal reasons and, you know, trying to protect their loved ones from possibly getting convicted and going to prison for the rest of their life. But I analyze every detail from head to toe, every person that could possibly be involved. The news that I've been watching, the videos, watching them over and over again, the facial expressions, the words that come out of their mouth, um, fake crying with no tears. I mean, if any one of my loved ones went missing, I would turn this whole world upside down. I would not lock myself in the house because I'm scared of what the public would think. And in this case, it was the complete opposite. They did lock themselves in the house, and you just can't wrap your head around how some people, especially if it's happening to your own family member, how they could stay so quiet, how they could fake in front of cameras with no tears at all, you know, the fake cries and whatever boohoo stuff. Um, And then, in my case, I ended up going to their house in front of their door, and um, they just locked themselves in the door. Like, I'd be out there. I'd have the entire city looking for my loved ones, the entire state. I would blow, bullhorns and scream out like, hey, if you know so and so, if you've seen so and so, please contact us, blah, 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 blah. And the flyers too did not make any sense the way that the flyers were made as well. So yeah, it's just, I analyze everybody because in my eyes at that moment, everybody is a suspect until we can rule them out.
It's funny because you have some cases where psychologically people have different trauma responses. So whereas if it were a family member of mine or yours, we might be highly emotional, and everything from sadness, sorrow, rage. I need to find this family member, what's going on, whatever the case may be. And then there have been cases in the past where people seem detached. And it wasn't that it was from guilt, it was because they did not, that was their trauma response. They didn't really know how to process things and they just kind of shut down. And it would seem also that if someone had that type of response, then it could cast a negative light on them, negative light of suspicion on them because they're not responding in the way that we feel we would respond or the average person would respond in a situation of that type. So, in a case like that, does it help to have whether it be psychic or even an empathic response to what that person is going through? Like, for example, if they were oddly shut down, then you may be able to sense that this is not the person we're looking for. I guess is what I'm saying.
Definitely, with my experience doing this for a very long time, plus the fact that I could read people like an open book. If you're lying to me, I could read right through it, and I'll tell you if you're lying or not. You're absolutely right, though. Everybody does grieve differently, but at the same time, it's not just their facial expressions. Again, the words that come out of their mouth, their body language. Um, every case is different. They could be very similar, but every case is different. And when you read in between the lines of what comes out of their mouth or their actions or what they're doing or what they're willing to do or how far they're willing to go with the case and do their own investigation and pleading with the public. I mean, it's no brainer that, especially somebody so young and so innocent that goes missing, and their loved ones and family members go in front of cameras and they force it and they fake it. There's a difference between forcing and faking versus shutting down. Like,
Hmm.
I've seen both sides. You know what I'm saying? Again, everybody grieves differently. I lost loved ones before. There are times when I just went ballistic, and there are times when I just shut down. But as far as wanting answers and knowing answers and actually pleading with the public to help, um, you know, I look into every little detail, all the way down to like their toes, if I have to, and see like how their feet movement are, and if they're like constantly how to like antsy, on antsy legs or whatever, the nervousness, like just basically like analyzing. And the fact that I could read people, you don't really have to be a psychic to see if they're really grieving or not.
Yeah, the
But at the
psychology of
same
body
time,
language. Yeah,
exactly, you could tell if they're lying or not as well, or
yeah.
if they're dodging a question, for example, if the media is asking or the public's asking them questions and they're dodging the questions, or they're just changing the subject and avoiding the question altogether and making it about themselves instead of about the person that's missing. So there's a lot of different things that, I have to look into, just like the investigators do.
How do you and I guess there's no other way to like word this, but how do you distinguish between, for example, intuition? Sorry, I don't have my big microphone. Everything's packed away. How do you distinguish between like intuition and imagination? Like, for example, is there any clear line? Has there ever been any ambiguity between like a psychic impression that you may get and or something that is let's say clouded by um, personal opinion? Like maybe if you look into a case, you kind of form these preconceived concepts that kind of muddy the waters and might make it a little bit more difficult to get some type of psychic clarity on what's going on. Has there ever been? Does that even happen? Is that a possibility that that could happen?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always tell my clients and everybody that comes to me asking about spiritual questions and, whatnot, but I always tell people your intuition and your instincts are the ones are there to protect you and help you through anything, whether it's your personal life or someone else's or you're helping other people. Always try trust your intuition because for example, like if you get this nagging feeling about something, and this is how I handle cases like this too. If it's something that's just bothering me and nagging me and nagging me, for example, the reason why I traveled, to a whole different state for this case myself on my own is because it was just nagging. I was like, listen, I've never been to that city before. I don't know anybody over there. I don't even know the map of that city. But I kept seeing these particular items, the evidence that's actually helping with the case. And I just kept seeing it was nagging at me. You know what I'm saying? So I trusted my intuition. And I had gathered a couple of locals over there to help me take me to these places where I was seeing in my visions. I know I wasn't crazy because it was just bothering me so much. Anytime you have to question something, it's not true. It's not, it could be just like your mind playing tricks on you. Like you want to believe in this, but at the same time, if you have to question it, it's not going to work. It's not real. It's just maybe wishful thinking or something that you hope it will happen or work out the way you want it or whatever the situation is. But if you have this really nagging feeling that won't go away, I suggest to look into it and be like, yeah, I'm going to trust my intuition. I'm going to trust my instinct and I'm going to go with it. Your
So,
instinct and your intuition are basically the same thing. They help you out.
so a bit of personal experience. I noticed, I always tell people the little voice in my head. Women, they say women have intuition, guys have a gut feeling. It's all the same thing, whether it's the voice in your head or whatever. And I noticed that
Yeah.
whenever I don't listen to it, things go horribly wrong. Whenever I do listen to it, things go smooth as silk, like butter. But and I did notice that, right? And so I kind of wondered what that is, and even in the case like when you talk about with investigations, right? Whether it be looking into a missing person or even if you're on an investigation in a haunted location, what that could possibly be. Like, are they spirit guides? Is it just that you're connected with the Akashic record and you just kind of got this flood of knowledge coming at you from the universe? The cosmos is opening you up. Is it your third eye looking into something? I mean, what makes up this intuition, whether it be an investigation of whatever type, or even like I said in my case, just something says, don't do this, do that, and when I listen, everything goes really nice. So, what do you think that intuition is? Do you think it's like spirit guides talking to you and nudging you in that right direction?
Well, just like you, I kick myself in the butt every time I don't listen to my intuition.
Mhm.
It could be a mixture of different things. It could be spirits that are guiding you and trying to help you out and lead you to the right direction. Like if you're working on a criminal case, um, even like haunted locations. I have been to so many haunted locations where, yes, there are spirits around, but I concentrate and zoom in on what's relevant to what I'm working on at that moment because there could be multiple different spirits in a haunted location where you're just like, okay, well, um, who do I listen to? What's going on? There's spirits that are like, hey, I'm over here, talk to me, listen to me, I want to talk to you. And then there are spirits where you walk in a haunted location and we're doing an investigation and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go with this entity because they're leading me to the right direction. They're talking to me about what is relevant at that moment of why I'm actually there. I'm not there to just hang out and chit chat with any spirit that comes through, but I'm going to go with and listen to the ones that seem logical at that moment of the situation of where we're at and what we're doing at that moment. And the same thing with the cases too. There could be, for example, let's say if it's a murder case that I'm working on, that and I go to a specific location where my intuition has taken me to investigate and look around. Um, and once I get there, it could be the spirit of the individual that was murdered. Their life was taken, and their spirit is still lingering around. And that's relevant because they're going to lead you. And I believe in this last case, that's what happened too, where they were leading me to this specific spot. And the location that I went to is an open field. I'm talking like acres and acres of land. You know what I mean? But I specifically went to that place, that spot where everything that I had spoken in my previous videos about everything that I had seen in my vision, again, going back to trusting your intuition, was there. Everything I've spoken about was there. And then going back to investigators trusting psychic mediums, if you're credible, 100% they're going to put their full trust in you. If you're not and they have to question you, I would say back off because you're going to look like a clown basically in front of them and they're not going to take you serious. So unless it's a nagging feeling and you have to be 100% sure of yourself. For example, like I don't question my abilities. I used to a long time ago in the beginning when I was younger and I was just dabbling with spirituality. But the older you get, the longer you deal with spirituality, you'll start to notice the difference between fake and real and what's your imagination versus what's actually really happening. And then your intuition kicks in. So there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of factors that play into spirituality. But number one thing is never ever doubt yourself because
Hmm.
the second you have to doubt yourself, then it's a no. You're not
Yeah.
on the right track.
What are your thoughts on, and this was just, and I, right before we even had the call, I kind of brought this up. Um, for example, like when you talk about the ethics of sharing, psychic impressions, obviously a couple of things can happen. If and this goes back to the confidence factor too that you just mentioned. So if there's ever a scenario where you're wrong about a an impression, right? Or can it lead, for example, and it's not just I don't mean just you in particular. I mean in general to anybody that's in this field, where it could lead people or lead law enforcement down the wrong rabbit hole, or possibly give false hope to families of the victims. So is it better to just kind of do everything quietly until you feel comfortable with what you're picking up on, or how? I mean, how do you and how should people handle that in general?
If you can, if you can, do it quietly. This last case I kind of did a little loud, but I did it quietly as far as loud with the public, quietly with the with law enforcement. They didn't even know that I was going to be there. I believe that you need to find out for yourself first, because again, going back to looking like a clown in front of them and then losing your credibility. And like you said, you're right, not just with law enforcement, but with their loved ones or family members too, giving them false hope. You don't want to do that because one screw up, your career as a psychic medium and your credibility is gone. There, and word spreads like wildfire. So you have to keep your reputation up. That's really important. Um, But yeah, I do believe that if you could do it as quietly as you possibly can, do your own investigation before you open your mouth.
It's
because again, it's not, and it's like, and it's not all that, it's not just about you, but it's a respect for the victim on cases you're working on and respect for their loved ones as well. So you need to respect everybody that's involved and also the investigators, of course, because they do work really hard to solve cases. So you just have to respect everybody. Don't be selfish and greedy and try to show yourself. And I noticed that's what a lot of people do, and that's where they screw up is, oh, I'm a psychic medium. I'm gonna go do this, and and they all they do is this, talk the talk. But when it comes to walk the walk, you're like, what do you have to show for? And there's nothing there. Or if there is something there, it has nothing to do, with what the case is about, what's relevant to what's going on at the moment. So you're playing with fire. And I don't, unless you have credibility, don't do that.
yeah.
Just don't.
I remember, and you have to excuse me because normally I'm rattling off dates and names of people, but I remember one case where a woman she's getting this recurring nightmare about this crime, and this actually did happen in I want to say, for example, I'm thinking it was in Nevada where it happened. And I know you, and what happened in this particular case was she notified the police. She said, my name is so and so. You may think this is crazy, but I have information on this crime, and this is what she did. And they basically tuned her out because they were, some cases they get, hundreds of leads or hundreds of tips, and they can't follow every. They have to follow credible tips. And somebody just calling out the blue, I'm not from around here, but this is a recurring dream I've had. And so they left it alone. She went to the location on her own because she couldn't get it out of her head. When she got to the location, she actually located this missing person who was deceased. And she went back to the police and she told them that she found this person. And she says, I'm the one that's been calling. And she led them to where the deceased individual was. And immediately the entire investigation focused on her because they were like, there's no way you could have known anything about this unless you had something to do with it. And they just immediately focused everything on her. And ultimately, what exonerated her was that she wasn't in the area when this occurred. And then ultimately, they did find solid evidence to point to whomever the perpetrator was. But it was just such an interesting case because it seems like that would be a hazard. You know what I mean? You're just coming out the blue. You say, "Hey, I have information," and then you lead them to either some piece of critical evidence. And if you have some members of law enforcement who are skeptics, they're going to be, "Oh, that's a bunch of BS. She didn't have a dream. She didn't have visions. She didn't have impressions. She went right to where this evidence was, so she must have been involved." Is that ever something that you thought of, like as a fear that it could happen?
It is. So basically, what happened, one or two things happened. It's funny you said that because, like I said, this last case I was working on, again, the detective was a really nice man, very understanding, but they have to be assholes in the beginning. You know what I mean? They have to treat everybody like a suspect. And they have every right so, because, I mean, who are you? That has nothing to do with this case or the fact that nobody even mentioned you in the beginning, and then you just like walk right in the middle of it and you're like, hey, all eyes on me, I got some evidence. And you're like, where did you come from? Who are you? You know what I mean? That's the detective basically did that to me. So when he called me, and then I told him about everything, and before I told him that I was a psychic medium, I just told him, hey, look, I'm in Vegas, and I went, I drove down there, I traveled, and I found all this stuff, and I talked a little bit about it, which that's one of my mistakes. Don't ever, ever, ever publicly talk about it. I mean, you can if you want to, just don't talk about the evidence. Even if it's like a single tiny little hair evidence, do not reveal it to the public because they'll take it, they'll run with it, and then all these fake psychic mediums will multiply and turn your investigation into theirs, and
Oh,
you don't want them
yeah,
to be
I could see
successful.
that definitely where that would muddy the waters really bad. Yeah.
That's what they try to do to me. Yeah, we had so many multiplying like overnight. They just turned into psychic mediums, and they're like, "Well, I see in my vision, blah 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 blah," and I'm like looking, I'm like, do you not realize that the videos I released is date and time stamps? So you're just repeating everything I said because mine was the first video to ever come out on this case. Um, so going back to being a suspect, of course, you have to have an open mind, number one, and you have to put your fear aside because they can handcuff you. They can actually handcuff you. They will take you down to the station. It has not happened to me, knock on wood. Hopefully it never does. But I have heard situations where there are psychics out there where they have been arrested or detained, I should say. They get taken down to the station, and then that's when you provide all the evidence and you provide who you are, and you have to prove, look, I have nothing to do with it. These are just visions, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, every psychic medium, they will look at you in a very skeptic way in the beginning, and you will be a suspect in their eyes, whether they tell you or not. A lot of times they will, but whether they tell you or not, just know that if they come and knock on your door, just be prepared to show all the evidence to take you out of the equation of the case and provide them with legit, actual, like real evidence, not
Hmm.
just, oh, I had a dream or I had this. Sometimes you can think dreams, they say when the dreams do come true sometimes. But even those visions in your dream, unless you have solid evidence, don't open your mouth because you're just going to be incriminating yourself until proven innocent. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I've never been in handcuffs. Hopefully, never, but that is a possibility. I've heard cases like that before. So just be prepared. Be careful what you say.
I'll have bail money waiting for you.
Yes,
Um,
yes, you will.
has there, when have you ever run across like evidence during an investigation and you realize, holy crap, this is, something that I had an impression about or I envisioned, and then you realize that it was evidence in an investigation. I mean, has that ever happened? And if it does, when it does happen, it seems like it would be a feeling of almost being elated that you were right, but that bittersweet, realization that this is something that was involved in a horrific crime, like, whatever it could be.
It absolutely does affect you emotionally and mentally, 100%. I know I keep talking about this one case, but we did find something. Um, we thought it was an actual body,
Hmm.
number one. And I'm not releasing any footage until the investigation is done, but I did take out my phone camera. That's something that psychic mediums or anybody that's investigating to back up your claim and to keep yourself safe from being locked up as a suspect, make sure that you document everything, number one. So basically, take your phone out. Nowadays everybody's filming each other, everybody's filming everything. So take advantage of that. Film, record everything, whether it's audio. I prefer video and audio. Take pictures as much as you can of the location, where your car is parked at, because that's what they're going to be like. Well, how did you get from here to here? And it's a couple of mile hike, for example, whatever, to find it. Um, so that's what I did. I filmed a lot when we went there, um, and I did. I had a mental breakdown. It's like bittersweet kind of thing. Like you want to find the missing person. Obviously, everybody wants to find them alive and well, and unfortunately, that's not always the case. So in this case, when we found what we found, I took out my camera. And I was freaking out. Actually, the camera was like facing me for a minute, and I was just like talking into the camera, and I was like, please don't, like basically talking to myself, like I bursted into tears, and I was like, oh my God, no, 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 I don't want, please don't let it be, please don't let it be. I don't want it to be this individual, wrapped up and this and that. And then when I noticed that I was facing the camera, I was like, no, uh-uh. So I turned the camera around and I was showing the evidence, Luckily, in a way, it wasn't. But again, it's bittersweet because I was like, okay, well, the sooner you close the case, especially on a murder case or a missing person, the sooner you could bring back that individual and let them rest in peace the way they're supposed to, instead of just being tossed out somewhere where people don't know. So yeah, it is. It does emotionally. You do emotionally get if you're not emotionally involved in it, then you don't belong to work on any cases because it will affect you, no matter what. Mentally, emotionally, it will affect you. I've actually cried on this case like multiple times, and I normally don't cry. People say I'm heartless, but I did. I had a couple of breakdowns, especially being on the scene when you're just like, this is it. It's final. You found an individual, and now what? Now you're like emotionally all over the place. And, it does take time to kind of gather yourself back up and move on. But it does keep you up at night sometimes.
Yeah, I could imagine that there would be some level of PTSD dealing with things like that. I mean, dealing with, you know, death and just the, various crimes. And yeah, it seems like it would kind of stick with you. Is there anything that you kind of do to kind of shake it off after being involved with something like that? Is it just like sticking with family? Do you just try to go out and clear your head, or how do you normally deal with that kind of stuff?
I
The
mean,
that
some people do therapy. I personally don't. Um, I'm gonna get a backlash at this, but I have no censor, no filter. I don't believe in therapy, so that's just me. But I found other ways that does help me, and it might help others too. I mean, everybody has a hobby. If you don't, then you should pick up a hobby because if you're dealing with something like that so stressful and emotionally messing you up, mentally messing you up, not letting you sleep at night, develop some kind of a hobby to take your mind off of it for a while. Take a break. You can't just jump from one case. I mean, I do. I jump from one case to another sometimes because, I mean, it's a high demand job basically. People know what I do for a living, and my emails are constantly flooded with messages. But you need to take a break. Everybody needs a break, no matter what. Even myself, like I'll decide, I'm like, you know what? I'm going out of town. I'm flying somewhere. I'm doing a road trip. Just do something to distract your mind, at least for a little while. Of course, there are some cases that will stick with you more or longer than other cases. I don't think you'll ever forget, especially that involves minors and innocent people.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It'll always be on the back of your mind, but as time goes by, it'll get a little bit more easier and easier and easier. If you're that type of person that gets too emotionally attached where you can't let go, then I don't think that job is for you either because you need to separate that life with your personal life. You can't combine both of them together because then what kind of life are you living in? You know what I mean? So when it's work time, leave it at work and then go home and be with your family, friends, your loved ones. Again, do a hobby, whatever, just to distract your mind and tell yourself, hey, it's not your fault. Because I know some people that get really emotionally attached. They're like, what if I did this? What if I did that? Then I could have found the person. Because there are some cases that are never solved.
Hmm.
And those are the cases where people just, you know, give themselves such a hard time. And it's like, you need to remember that you had nothing to do with this case. You volunteered to help and you did what you can. There's all these evidence gathered, but no matter how much evidence is gathered in a case sometimes, there are a lot of cases that are still open that are not solved. So you can't take it personal.
Speaking of cases not solved, did you ever? That is like a goofy question, but did you ever watched any shows like Cold Case Files or some of these shows, and just kind of and stuff runs through your head, whether it's a psychic impression or anything. Do you ever look at any of these and say, "Oh, well, this is what happened"? Like it sort of it pops in your head immediately what took place. Did you ever do that? Does that even
Sometimes
is
it
that
does.
even a thing?
It does, because sometimes I'll look at it and I'll be screaming at the TV. I'm like, no, but what if you look at this? Or what if you go here? What if you talk to so and so? Sometimes it does. It just pops up. Like I said, this last case that I took on, I was just watching this news thing, for family members and loved ones talking and stuff, and looking with there's no tears, there's no like all of a sudden, just like I gravitated to that case. You know what I'm saying? Um, but yeah, there are times when I'm looking and I'm just like, this could have just been an open and shut case. And because they let it go for so long, it does get frustrating because the trail goes cold. Suspects pass away sometimes where they're never caught. They're most likely burning in hell. And there's, it's
Uh,
you know what I mean,
I know what you
but
mean.
I'm So yeah, it does get frustrating. There are times when I'm just like, couldn't they just contact me? Like I'm right here. Hello, like you know what I'm saying? You could have contacted me. I could have helped you, especially on a fresh case. But yeah, it does get frustrating. And I love those type of shows.
It's me too. That's why I even brought it up. It seems like it would be kind of interesting if, at some point this could be normalized and standardized. Like where they could be, they could reach out to credible credible psychics for the investigations, and and that's the thing too. It's like that's why I mentioned before about like skepticism, things like that, because I think for every group of law enforcement investigators or members of that team, you have people that are they're fully on board. They believe in this stuff. That I don't even like use that term believe in this stuff because it makes it sound like you're believing in something that's non-existent. But they understand that field, and they understand the value of reaching out to someone that has a heightened senses about these things versus somebody that kind of totally shuts down and says, "Ah, it's a bunch of BS." Good old police work. Put your nose to the grindstone, and we'll figure it out. Um, and it would seem also that if you're investigating whatever type of crime it was, that you would be open to whatever possible help that you could get. Because at a minimum, if they invited a third party in like that, and at a minimum, they might get uh, some information that has some ambiguity to it and doesn't really help at all. But on the positive side, they may get a very valuable piece of information. If somebody says, "Oh, go look at the suspect's house in the closet. There's a shoebox, and open it up," and then they open it up and they find a murder weapon in there. It seems like why would you not want to have that additional help? It's like one of those "what's the worst that can happen" type things. If as long as they're not taking you too far away to where you're burning up resources, um, away from the core investigation. I mean, if they're on path with what you're doing, why not accept the help? I mean, I don't. That's the one
I
part I
100%
don't get.
agree with I 100% agree with you. There's a couple of things regarding that. Number one, for all the investigators, I think they should have an open mind. They should even if you're a skeptic, like I'm very well known actually to turn skeptics into believers because of my abilities and the readings I do for them. And they look at me like, what planet are you from? How did you know that? Um, but, they need to have an open mind. And unfortunately, all these fake ones that are out there running around, um, we do lose. I mean, they give the rest of us a bad name that are actually real and the real deal, and we know what we're doing. So I can't really blame the skeptics or the investigators that much because there's a lot of fake ones that just want money or attention or views or whatever the case is. You know what I'm saying? So in order to filter it, and it does take some time for them to filter the real ones from the fake ones, and it does take time off of concentrating on the case that they're working on. But they should have an open mind. I do believe that. I think Texas, if I'm not mistaken, I think Texas, they have started if I remember correctly, like 3 years ago, I was watching, those crime shows and stuff we talked about, and the sheriff actually came out in Texas and said that they started using psychics. not just any psychic that walks in the doors and claim that they're psychics. Of course, they do their own job and they look into their work and to see how credible they are. And if you're credible and they feel like you can help on this case, why not? You know what I mean? The more helping hands you can get on a case, of course, it's going to be like an open and shut case, almost a lot quicker than it would without that third hand to that volunteers to help out. But again, they have to you have to gain credibility and they have to see like if you're serious or not, if you know what you're talking about or not. And another thing that's really important that people need to understand too, if you're willing to put yourself out there and do your own investigation and collect evidence for the investigators, number one main thing that ticks off the investigators, and I've had many conversations with many investigators, many detectives, and law enforcement officers about this, is the reason why they don't trust the public or just anybody to walk up and knock on their door and say, I want to help, is because they don't know what they're doing as far as if they stumble upon some type of a crucial evidence on the case that can help solve the case or crack open the case or even catch a suspect. um, they cannot contaminate the location or the evidence. They can't touch it. They can't tamper with it. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if even if even if they feel like there's a body in a trash bag that clearly you could tell it's shape of a body, either that or a really big animal, regardless, don't go and put your fingerprints on the trash bag and tear open the trash bag and okay, well, I need to verify to make sure it's actually a body before I call 911. Regardless, don't touch it. Call 911, let them come and open it. Whether it's a body, an animal, a ton of bricks, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Don't contaminate the evidence. Don't tamper with it. Do not touch it. Don't leave, even like fingerprints or hair part. Because if you leave, like, if you're standing over a dead body, for example, and you're filming, you could film from far, number one. But like I said, take video and pictures and stuff. But if you're filming and a piece of your hair gets stuck on the victim,
Mm-hmm.
explain that.
Yeah, there is no way to
So
explain your way away from that, you know?
exactly. So number one, protect yourself. Don't
Mm-hmm.
go, don't go near the evidence, and don't contaminate. Don't touch it. Don't do anything. And number two, respect investigators, respect law enforcement, and let them do their jobs. It's not your job. Like your job was okay. We found the evidence. Now let them do their research and go through the evidence because a lot of people that they're not investigators. They're not qualified to do that job.
And that's
So.
interesting because I was going to, before we wrap up, I was going to ask you, for example, if you had any, any tips or insights as to, that you would probably impart to anyone that finds himself in that situation. Um, and additionally, I don't know, if there's cases where there are, for example, younger folks that find themselves having these visions or having these feelings about events and so forth. I mean, would you, is there any like paths that you could recommend that they would like how they would deal with this stuff? Because I would imagine too, if you're kind of young or if you're very inexperienced, you probably want to stay away from that whole thing as much as possible because you're inexperienced, right? You can't really just go out and just start throwing yourself in the middle of an investigation.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, if you're inexperienced, um, there are people out there that are like the real deal, like me. And I mean, I'm speaking for myself along with others that I know. We don't mind taking you guys with us, just like, like right along, like for example, if somebody wants to be a law enforcement officer, they do ride-alongs. The police department offers that where you do take a couple hours out of your day and you attach yourself to a police officer's hip and you do ride-alongs. So that way you can get an idea of what life is like, wearing a badge on the other side. And then you'd be like, okay, 100% confirmed. Yes, I want to do this job, or it's too dangerous for me. I don't want to do it. And the same thing with this too. especially being a psychic medium and throwing yourself out there and doing all these investigations. If you are new to this, number one, you need to enhance your abilities, especially if you're young. I don't believe that people in their 20s, I would say, are that experienced with their abilities, yet alone to go out there and investigate. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I would watch a lot of crime shows as well because you'll see clues and hints in crime shows where what you should and you should not do. So that could be something educational for them as well. If you stumble upon evidence, number one, don't freak out. Number two, call 911 right away. Call law enforcement right away. Don't touch anything. If you're not supposed to be inside a building, for example, don't go in the building because whether you're trying to, again, like every little detail counts in
Hmm.
investigations. You can't just say, well, nobody's in this house, nobody lives here, and just invite yourself. You need to get permission from the city to be able to go into certain locations. Otherwise, you will be arrested. And going back to the credibility thing, if you're arrested, whether you're a psychic or not, whether you're 100% the real deal or not, and there's evidence in that building, but yet you get arrested for breaking and entering illegally, they're not going to use you. You're done. They'll take all the evidence. They'll probably say thank you, but they're never going to use you ever.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So credibility comes 100%. That's number one important. And just don't put on a fake badge and a detective hat and just think that you could take the case upon in your own hands and go do whatever you think that you're doing to solve the case because you're going to be in hot waters and they're going to question you a lot. They might even fine you for it. You might even do some jail time because you can't. It's very serious with crimes like that. Like, don't contaminate evidence. And when I say don't contaminate, don't go into buildings you're not allowed to. Don't touch anything you see. You could take pictures, you can film, but then you call 911. Especially with footprints. If you see footprints and your footprints are on top of the footprints, you're done.
Yeah.
You might have to explain it too.
Well,
So,
I'm glad that you gave me that advice because there's still time to get an Amazon refund on my fake badge and detective hat that just arrived earlier today.
oh man. Listen, I don't have the bail money for you either, so we're both screwed.
Well, that was actually my second idea. My first idea was I was going to find a stoner, a Great Dane, find a couple of women I know, and then get some big goofy guy that's kind of a lunkhead. I figured we just get a van and do the whole Scooby Doo thing and see what we can find out on cold cases. But you know
Let's
that.
go. I'm on board. Let's go.
Well, you know
Not
what?
everything has to be serious. So, sometimes we have to laugh about it so we don't go crazy.
Oh yeah. You know, it's been a pleasure as always because it's you know I always learn something whenever I talk to you because you know to be totally honest, I always have like these preconceived ideas of what goes on, but you got to talk to people before you can just say, "Oh, this is how it is," and you know it's I like to be a subject matter expert in a lot of areas, but this is definitely an area that I'm just totally clueless in. And all I can do is listen to people and hear their stories and hear what they talk about. And you've always been really good with telling me about what your experiences are. And hopefully everybody out there gets to hear a little bit about what your experiences are. And hopefully, if there's any law enforcement that's out there and they want to find out a little bit more about your services and get you involved in things, that would be wonderful too. So let's make sure that we tell everybody where
Yep.
they can find you, Monica. Where can they find
You
you?
can go to, I have a website, monicalawson.net. You can contact me there. My prices are there. All my work, everything that, my bio is on it. So you guys could learn a little bit more about me and my work. Also, I'm all over social media, either on under Monica Lawson or Monica Spirit Queen. You can't miss me. I mean, who can miss the space anyway? So,
That that's right.
like, there's only one Monica Spirit Queen, one Monica Lawson, one Monica Spirit Queen.
I was gonna reiterate that fact that there's only that you're the one and only. and everybody else is frauds and fakesters, and they can go kick rocks.
Yes.
All right, Monica, it's
Well,
been.
it was a pleasure. We're definitely going to be doing this more.
Oh yeah, we're gonna
And
have more conversations.
let me be part of the was it outro or whatever outro? That's what
But,
you say, right?
but
Intro and outro.
oh, the intro and outro, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say be part
Let
of
me
this
do.
the Scooby Doo bunch that I'm forming.
Oh, that's already done deal. We already signed a contract with that one.
All right.
Anybody watching this, anybody listening, you guys have to follow Mark too because he does have a lot of great videos and a lot of great shows coming up. So and you don't want to miss him. So
Oh
make sure
yeah,
you subscribe and you follow social
yeah.
media.
One day we're gonna see if we can get you out on an investigation because I haven't done any walkthroughs with you, so I'll try to be out your way soon so we can actually go to a location and maybe cut some videos and some other cool stuff to share with the to share with everybody watching. Okay.
I'm ready anytime.
Woohoo! All right, everybody. Thank you very much. You're listening to The Dark Doorway, or you watched The Dark Doorway. Once again, I'm your host, Mark Bolden, and this has been Monica, Spirit Queen. Pleasure as always, Monica. Thank you so much. And everybody,
Thank you so much.
and everybody out there, you have a great night, everybody. Good night.
The Dark Doorway is a production of Phase 5 Media LLC. This program may contain copyrighted material used under the doctrine of fair use for the purpose of commentary, education, and exploration of the unknown. Any unauthorized duplication, distribution, or broadcast is strictly forbidden without written consent from Phase 5 Media. For inquiries or to report something strange, reach out to us at info@phase5media.com. Until next time, keep one eye open and question everything.
Whoa.